before I go to Liberal Senator for New South Wales, Andrew Bragg. Thanks for joining us, Andrew. Good to talk to you again. You've been very forward-leaning on this stuff, arguing the case for an Indigenous voice, arguing the case for recognition in the Constitution. It's an interesting argument for you because the people you have to win over largely are the people on the Conservative side of politics, people in your own party. How are you going with that?
Well, Chris, as you know, these are not always easy conversations. And I think the way that the Turnbull government dealt with the Uluru Statement, I think, was very unfortunate because people talked about having a third chamber and people talked about race has no place, both of which are fundamentally untrue notions. And so over the past 4 years, there's been a lot of work done to try and repair that damage, to highlight that the concept of a voice to Parliament is really about agency on the ground, but also about dealing with some symbolic needs that our nation has.
Yeah, I think it was the low point, and there are a few competing moments, of course, in terms of Malcolm Turnbull's prime ministership. But after years of Indigenous consultation around the country, culminating from decades of work and consultation, they came to the Statement of the Heart at Uluru, a great consensus from Aboriginal Australia. Now, you can argue against the detail of it and discuss it, but after all of that process, it was agonising, and I thought actually unlikely they'd get that consensus across Indigenous Australia. Within days, the sitting Prime Minister, Malcolm Turnbull, just slapped it aside, just said, ignore this, I won't do it. And the Conservatives in your party have had a similar position as well. So, I mean, is this thing doomed from the go?
Well, I think it was premature to have dismissed the voice as a third chamber. Now, Barnaby Joyce, of course, was the person that started this, and it was then adopted by others. Barnaby, of course, has now recanted that and apologised. But, Chris, to your first question, I mean, I understand that many Conservatives have concerns about this concept. I think the best argument for having a voice is the fact that we already have 18 different laws on the federal statute books which are made solely for Indigenous people, the only people that have special laws made. And so I think that if you want to have a liberal democracy where you make special laws for a group of people, you have to give them a say over those special laws.
I think that's the most straightforward argument. I think it's the one most Australians, when you sit down and talk to them, will agree with, because that's about a fair go. Your government has special powers to make special laws about one group of people, so therefore there should be a way for those people to have their say. It's only a recommendation. Give them some sort of consultation into those laws. I think that is basically a fair go. But I suppose the other point here is it's very clear that despite all the work that's been done, it looks like, from what Scott Morrison has said most recently, this certainly won't be legislated before the next election. That could be a good thing for a lot of people who argue for this being mentioned in the Constitution, because it means that you go into another term of Parliament, you can have the debate across all political aisles, and if there then is a possibility that this could be framed as part of constitutional recognition. After a referendum, of course.
Yeah, well, but the only constitutional recognition that Indigenous people are interested in, as far as I can see, is some sort of a voice or some sort of a mechanism in the Constitution which compels the federal government to consult Indigenous people when it makes special laws. Now, I think we should be committing to having a referendum in the next term, and that would be achievable now that we're going to have the Langton-Calma report, which looked at the voice. But I think we need to have another committee, which I hope will be the last committee process or task force, to look at the various models that could be deployed to amend the Constitution.
Too many committees, but yeah, we'll see what happens after the election. I think what you're saying is right. People like Noel Pearson are arguing for that. Let's wait till after the election and look at some sort of a referendum question, and that's why a couple of non-Indigenous people like you and I and everybody watching has a say in this, because in the end, if it's going to go down that route, we all get a vote on it in a referendum. Thanks for joining us, Andrew. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Chris.